She's been working for the BIG3 over the last year, which is Ice Cube's 3-on-3 league. Of course, they had that offer to Caitlin Clark last year for the $5 million, which I think ultimately worked out as advertising for them rather than actually being serious. They apparently have fired Rachel DeMita for tweeting during the game last week when Caitlin Clark...
In a move that borders on self-sabotage, the BIG3 League has orchestrated one of the most baffling blunders in modern sports lore, ousting their most revered correspondent over a single, innocuous tweet regarding Caitlin Clark. This wasn't a scandal, it wasn't vitriol. It was a benign observation in the digital wind, yet it detonated a corporate overreaction of laughable proportions. Now, the backlash is spreading like wildfire across cyberspace, leaving Ice Cube's once admired venture gasping in a public relations inferno. The online world isn't just criticizing, it's eviscerating. Forums are ablaze, timelines flooded, and reputations on the chopping block. What should have been a forgettable post has ballooned into a reputational nosedive. Does this knee-jerk expulsion over a Caitlin Clark quip make any sense? Or has the league catastrophically misread the cultural barometer?
So if you guys ever played 2K, you guys know who Rachel DeMita is. She had a jump shot in 2K. She covered the 2K show on NBA 2K. I believe she's dating Andre Roberson and all that stuff. We just got some news coming out that the BIG3 has fired Rachel DeMita after tweeting Caitlin Clark highlights during the same game.
Well, the BIG3 has truly entangled itself in a mess of its own making this time, haven't they? Ice Cube's boutique basketball operation just executed what might be the most tone-deaf maneuver in recent sports media memory. They unceremoniously axed Rachel Data, the league's most visible and resonant voice, all for the supposed misstep of sharing a tweet about Caitlin Clark. That's it, a tweet. Now, they're facing the harsh truth that meddling with anything orbiting Caitlin Clark is a cultural equivalent of jamming a stick into a live hornet hive. Reckless, short-sighted, and begging for retaliation.
She was working. So pretty much, she was on her phone. She was on the phone on the clock working. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I can speak for everybody. We're always on the phone on the clock. Our 9 to 5, I'm on the phone. You guys are on the phone that are watching this video. We're always on the phone. And then you got Stephen A. Smith playing solitaire, whatever that game's called, during the NBA Finals, but nothing happens to him. It just shows you the privilege that certain people have in this world.
Let's rewind the reel, because this saga is so absurd it teeters on the edge of fiction. Rachel Data was on duty as a courtside correspondent for the BIG3 this past Saturday, a role she'd held for nearly a year. During that time, she injected the league's broadcast with a pulse of digital charisma, crafting content that actually resonated with younger viewers and brought much-needed vitality to their social media landscape. Her very purpose was to ignite engagement, stir conversation, and make the league feel culturally alive. That's the irony. Her job was to be loud online, and yet, look what happened.
In this world. Just shows you. She's getting fired because she was tweeting Caitlin Clark's highlights on the clock, but you got Stephen A. in the biggest moment of the NBA, in the NBA Finals, playing a game. Think about that, guys. Think about that. So, I'm interested to see like what's next for, Rachel DeMita and stuff like that, but hey, it's not her fault that the WNBA was more entertaining than the BIG3 at the time.
Meanwhile, at the exact same time, Caitlin Clark was making her triumphant return from injury in a massive WNBA game against the defending champion New York Liberty. Clark had been out for 5 games with a quad injury, and fans were dying to see her back on the court. When she came back, she didn't disappoint, dropping 32 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds in a dominant 10,188 victory. That became the 3rd most watched WNBA game on ABC during this historic performance. Clark buried a deep three-pointer that had the basketball world losing its mind. It was one of those logo shots that she's become famous for. The crowd went wild, social media exploded, and basketball fans everywhere were reminded why Clark is appointment television.
Elephant in the room, or the elephant that is currently going viral on social media, and that is the news that I was fired from the BIG3. Now, my intention in making this video is just to tell you guys the truth. I don't have a publicist telling me what to say. No one's telling me what to say. I just wanted to give you guys the truth.
Rachel Data, like millions of other hoop devotees, witnessed a jaw-dropping moment on the court and responded like any plugged-in fan would. She shared it. She posted the clip on Twitter with a simple, punchy caption, For those who question, the hype, that's it. That was the entire supposed transgression. The digital whisper that got her axed. Now here's where the story takes a hard left into absurdity. Rather than handle the matter with a shred of professionalism, the Big Three opted for the coldest route imaginable at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. They fired off a sterile email, no call, no sit down, no warning, just a corporate dagger to the inbox. In the message, they scolded her for what they called a severe lapse in judgment, lamenting her decision to post about a competing league during one of their broadcasts a crime. No, a cautionary tale in pettiness, absolutely.
And I don't want to make this any more dramatic than it needs to be. So with all of that being said, the rumors are true. I was fired from the Big Three, and my team received an email at 11 p.m. on Tuesday.
Let's pause and actually think this through. Rachel Data wasn't live streaming a WNBA matchup on the Big Three's official page. She wasn't urging fans to flip the channel and watch the Indiana Fever. All she did was post a single tweet, one celebratory remark about a phenomenal moment in basketball, and for that, they erased her from their ranks, just like that. The sheer fragility on display here is almost breathtaking. You've got a league clawing for relevance in a saturated sports arena, and yet their response to the faintest mention of another basketball entity is to overreact like a jealous ex. It's as if the Big Three genuinely believes the sport exists in a vacuum, that any applause directed elsewhere is somehow an assault on their brand. That kind of insecurity doesn't build leagues, it buries them.
I don't want to misquote anything, so I will just let you guys know exactly what that email said. They said, it has come to Big Three's attention that Miss DeMita was posting on her social media platforms during this past weekend's Big Three games and promoting the competing New York Liberty vs. Indiana Fever WNBA game that was being broadcast at the same time. The league is extremely dismayed and disappointed by Miss DeMita's severe lapse in judgment while performing services for the league, during which time she should have reasonably known that she should have been promoting only league games. The league provided her with unique access and opportunity to be a focal point on national broadcasts, so management was completely taken aback to learn that she was
But here's where the Big Three's humiliation becomes downright theatrical. Their very public history with Caitlin Clark, not long ago. This same league dangled a jaw-dropping $10 million offer in front of her, a 2-year deal bursting at the seams with perks. We're talking partial ownership of a team, a cut of all merchandise profits, a full-fledged documentary project, and even Hall of Famer Nancy Lieberman prepped to coach her. It wasn't just a contract, it was a full-blown BASKETBALL empire tailor-made for Clark, and still, she declined. She chose the WNBA with Olympic dreams in her sights, and turned her back on the Big Three's golden ticket. Since then, the league's energy has carried the scent of bitterness, and now it's beginning to reek. So when Rachel Data, their own in-house talent, dared to highlight a moment of Clark's brilliance, the brass took it personally, as if her admiration was treason. The email they sent her, a textbook example of petty bureaucracy dressed in a suit in it. Big Three management claimed they were completely taken aback that she would post about another league's game. Seriously? Shocked that a basketball reporter tweeted about basketball, the absurdity doesn't stop there. They scolded her for not instinctively knowing she should only be amplifying Big Three content during their event. One slight problem with that logic, Data wasn't even officially under contract at the time. Her agent was still in negotiations, and yet...
Now, this is true. I did send out 3 tweets about the Indiana Fever versus New York Liberty game during the Big Three broadcast. And again, you guys, I want to be completely transparent. I will show you the exact tweets that were posted during that time. So firstly, to start the day, I tweeted a selfie and I said, let's work, and I tagged the Big Three and CBS Sports. And then I tweeted this highlight 3-pointer of Caitlin Clark, and it said, for those who question the hype, and that was a tweet that directly came from me. And then I retweeted a Nike basketball tweet, and then I also retweeted when the Indiana Fever won the game. I did continue to tweet about that game, but it was after the Big Three broadcast.
They treated her like a defector over a tweet. At the time of her dismissal, Rachel Data wasn't even officially on the payroll. Her agent was still in the trenches, negotiating the finer points of her contract. She was working in good faith, showing up doing her job and creating value, while the legal ink hadn't even dried. And yet, they axed her for breaking imaginary rules, rules that seemingly existed nowhere but in the paranoid corners of their own minds. The timing of this debacle only deepens the absurdity. The Big Three is in the middle of trying to rebrand itself as a serious contender, a legitimate, respected force in the basketball world. But instead of exuding confidence and vision, they pull a move so
there wasn't any discussion prior to me being fired. However, I didn't hear from anybody. There was no
juvenile and hyperreactive that they look like a weekend rec league, held together with duct tape and ego. And through it all, Rachel Data chose poise over pettiness. She had every reason to go nuclear. She could have dragged the Big Three's reputation through the mud, exposed their behind-the-scenes dysfunction, aired their insecurities for the world to see. But she didn't. Instead, she released a measure dignified, video, calm, professional, and heartbreakingly gracious. She took ownership of her actions, expressed regret that a conversation couldn't have happened before the decision, and even extended good wishes to the league that blindsided her. In a scandal built on immaturity, she was the only adult in the room. She ended her video with grace, wishing the Big Three nothing but the best. And ironically, that level of elegance and maturity only magnified the league's embarrassment. Here's a woman who got blindsided by a termination notice dropped cold into her inbox at 11 p.m., all for the crime of tweeting about basketball. And yet she carried herself with more dignity than the very organization that cast her out. But the internet wasn't going to let this pass quietly. Once the story surfaced, the backlash erupted like a dam breaking. Basketball fans, sports commentators, influencers, even casual onlookers swarmed the Big Three with criticism, blasting them for what was almost universally regarded as a cartoonishly overblown response. The hypocrisy was called out immediately. People dragged up examples of sports media's selective outrage. Stephen A. Smith literally caught playing solitaire during NBA Finals coverage, yet he's still employed. Meanwhile, Rachel Data gets canned over a single tweet. The double standards were glaring. Others focused on the sheer stupidity of the decision from a business lens. Rachel Data isn't just some random intern. She has reach. She has audience. She has influence. Rachel Data commands an audience of over 1 million followers across her social platforms. That's not fluff. That's measurable, monetizable influence. Her ability to drive engagement and visibility is a rare asset in a media landscape obsessed with reach. Firing her over something this petty? It's the business equivalent of setting fire to your own billboard. The optics? Absolutely dreadful. This is a league co-founded by Ice Cube, a man whose brand was built on authenticity, rebellion, and speaking uncomfortable truths to power. And now, that same league is out here silencing someone for praising great basketball. It's a move so contradictory it practically mocks the ethos they claim to represent. Then there's the Caitlin Clark element, the most explosive factor in all of this. Let's be honest, firing someone over a post about Clark is tantamount to picking a fight with the biggest name in women's sports. Caitlin Clark isn't just an athlete. She's a movement, a cultural force with a loyal, fiery fan base that rides hard for her. And now, the Big Three has effectively painted a glowing bullseye on its own chest. From a business standpoint, the fallout is potentially catastrophic. This is a league that's still scrambling for mainstream traction, trying to carve a permanent seat at the basketball table. They should be courting goodwill, not inciting backlash. Instead, they've managed to cast themselves as the out-of-touch antagonist in a story everyone is watching, and no one is siding with them. This fiasco has now escalated into a national spectacle, and every single headline paints the Big Three as petty, fragile, and completely out of touch. They had options, plenty of them. They could have had a respectful, behind-the-scenes conversation with Rachel Data about aligning on social media expectations. They could have created clearer content policies moving forward. Hell, they could have just let it slide, because the tweet wasn't harming anyone. It was a celebration of basketball excellence, not an act of sabotage. Instead, they slammed the red button, terminated her over email. Like a ghost firing, no warning, no nuance, no professionalism. And now, they're compounding the damage by going radio silent. When reporters reached out, The only thing a Big 3 spokesperson offered was the corporate equivalent of a shrug. "We don't comment on personnel matters." Translation, "We messed up, but we're too proud or too scared to say it out loud." Meanwhile, Rachel Data is still handling this better than most would. No rants, no grudges, no burning of bridges. She's staying focused on her craft, pushing forward with poise, and letting her work speak louder than the drama, and that contrast, it's damning. The Big 3 looks even more foolish for letting her go, especially in an industry like sports. Media, where so many professionals are freelance independent and constantly navigating unstable ground. Every move counts, every relationship matters, and the Big 3 just torched one of the good ones. What makes this even more disconcerting is that Rachel Data wasn't a full-time, tenured employee with benefits and stability. She was a freelancer, navigating the precarious gig-to-gig grind that defines much of the sports media landscape today. One misstep, if you can even call a single tweet that, and suddenly your livelihood vanishes overnight. This sends a cold, shivering message, rippling through the industry. Tread lightly. Guard every word you type. Suppress any genuine enthusiasm that might be perceived as a threat by your employer. Keep your authentic reactions locked away because the next person might label you as having committed a severe lapse in judgment. The irony here is razor sharp. The Big 3 recruited Data precisely for her vibrant social media presence and her knack for crafting engaging, authentic basketball content. Her entire appeal was rooted in her personality, her real, unscripted responses to the game, yet apparently, that very authenticity was only tolerated when it fit within their narrow confines. One can only imagine what the players and other staffers within the Big 3's orbit are thinking. If they're willing to discard someone as valuable as Data over one tweet, what hope does anyone else have? It fosters a culture steeped in fear and enforced self-censorship, suffocating creativity and honesty in its wake. That kind of environment is poison for any organization. The most maddening part, this entire fiasco was utterly preventable. Had the Big 3 simply shrugged off the tweet or handled it discreetly behind closed doors, none of this would have ballooned into a full-blown public spectacle. Instead, they transformed a non-event into a headline-grabbing disaster, overshadowing any progress they've made on the court. They're also blind to the larger narrative Caitlin Clark embodies. She's not just another player, she's a cultural force, a catalyst drawing fresh eyes and fresh energy to basketball. Anyone invested in the sport should be rallying around her success, recognizing how it elevates the entire game's visibility and value. By penalizing someone for celebrating Clark's brilliance, the Big 3 has aligned itself against the most electrifying story in basketball right now. They're signaling they'd rather wallow in petty envy than applaud genuine excellence. That's a terrible look for any sports entity. The Big 3's entire business hinges on captivating basketball fans hungry for content during the NBA's off-season, but those very fans, they adore Caitlin Clark and the momentum of women's basketball. Alienating them over a frivolous controversy is, quite simply, self-sabotage. Rest assured, rival media outfits are watching closely. Rachel Data is a gifted professional with a solid track record. Somebody else will swoop in, snap her up, and reap the rewards from the Big 3's blunder. Meanwhile, the league will scramble to replace her, likely shelling out more money for someone less capable. At this point, the Big 3 must be grappling with the enormity of their misstep. The backlash they're facing far outweighs any damage the original tweet could have caused. They've twisted a moment of pure celebration, someone reveling in basketball greatness, into a spectacle of their own insecurity and mismanagement, and that's the real tragedy here. The most humiliating facet of this entire debacle, Rachel Data's tweet wasn't even remotely provocative. For those who question the hype, a phrase so tame it barely registers as commentary, especially considering Clark had just erupted for 32 points in her comeback game. If that's deemed incendiary, then basketball discourse has descended into an unprecedented era of sanitization. The irony cuts deep. The Big 3 specifically hired Data for her magnetic social media presence and knack for crafting engaging, authentic basketball narratives. Her entire appeal rested on her genuine personality and unfiltered passion. Yet, shockingly, that authenticity was only embraced when it aligned perfectly with the league's narrow agenda. One can only speculate what the players and staff within The Big Three's ranks are thinking, if someone as invaluable as Data can be discarded over a single tweet, what hope remains for anyone else? It breeds a climate of fear and self-censorship, a suffocating atmosphere detrimental to any organization. What makes it worse? This disaster was entirely avoidable. Had the Big Three ignored the tweet or addressed it discreetly behind closed doors, this saga would have never erupted into a public relations nightmare, one now garnering far more attention than anything happening on their courts. They're also oblivious to the broader narrative Caitlin Clark embodies. Clark isn't just a player. She's a cultural juggernaut, a beacon attracting new audiences to basketball's fold. Every stakeholder in the sport should be rallying to her success, recognizing how it uplifts the entire ecosystem. By punishing someone for celebrating Clark's ascendancy, the Big Three has aligned itself against the most compelling story in basketball today. In essence, they're broadcasting that petty envy outweighs celebrating excellence. It's a devastating look for any sports institution. The Big Three's entire business hinges on captivating basketball fans hungry for content during the NBA's off-season. The Big Three's entire existence hinges on captivating basketball enthusiasts hungry for fresh content during the NBA's off-season. Yet, ironically, those very fans are some of the most passionate supporters of Caitlin Clark and women's basketball. Alienating such a crucial demographic over a petty misstep is nothing short of self-sabotage. Rest assured, rival media outlets are watching this unfold closely. Rachel Data is a seasoned professional with an impressive track record, someone who brings genuine value. It's only a matter of time before another organization recognizes her talent and reaps the benefits of the Big Three's colossal blunder. Meanwhile, the league will scramble to replace her, likely at greater cost and with diminished expertise. It's dawning on the Big Three just how enormous their error was. The negative fallout from this saga dwarfs any harm that might have come from the original tweet if they had simply ignored it. What began as a moment celebrating basketball excellence has morphed into a spectacle, exposing the league's own fragility and short-sightedness. The truly embarrassing aspect, Data's tweet, wasn't even controversial. For those who question the hype, is a mild, even understated comment, especially considering Clark's 32-point return from injury, if that's inflammatory. Then basketball commentary has reached a bewildering new low in sanitization. This entire episode lays bare unsettling truths about the Big Three's leadership and decision-making. Who greenlit this? Was there any opposition? Did anyone pause to consider the public fallout? Their proceeding anyway suggests a deep-rooted lapse in judgment at the highest echelons. They've also set a dangerous precedent that's unsustainable. Will they now police every employee's social feed for off-brand mentions? Fire someone for retweeting an NBA highlight? Where does this absurdity end? The Big Three ought to be focused on basketball, promoting games, showcasing players, and delighting fans, not policing tweets. Instead, they're entangled in a self-inflicted public relations quagmire, overshadowing every stride they've tried to make. This controversy will shadow them for the foreseeable future. Every article mentioning the Big Three will recall this episode as a glaring example of insecurity and poor governance. They've inadvertently branded themselves as a league that punishes those who celebrate basketball greatness. Rachel Data, however, will land on her feet her talent, network, and now the sympathy of the entire basketball community position her for even greater opportunities likely far superior to what the Big Three offered. But the league, they'll carry this scar for a long time. By now, the sting of instant regret must be settling in. They've learned, albeit painfully, that in the relentless world of social media, missteps of this nature echo far louder and last far longer than anyone anticipates. In today's hyper-connected world, every misstep is instantly magnified and mercilessly scrutinized. There's no erasing this blunder or burying it under silence. The Big Three must now bear the full weight of their grievous lapse in judgment. This is the inevitable fallout when ego and pettiness eclipse basic common sense. The league allowed lingering bitterness over Caitlin Clark's rejection of their lucrative offer to cloud what should have been a straightforward business decision. Now, they're paying a steep price in damaging headlines and eroding credibility. Their very existence hinges on reputation, and this fiasco has delivered a massive blow to that currency. By firing Rachel Data over one harmless tweet, The Big Three transformed a trivial moment into a nationwide spectacle of embarrassment. And the harshest lesson: messing with anything connected to Caitlin Clark only invites backlash and fallout. This miscalculation will haunt them far longer than any tweet ever could. What's your verdict on this absurd overreaction? Like and subscribe for more unfiltered sports drama.